I'm biding him at gid for lang, rugging afore the mast. Yet times me thoughts they tak a spang, off to the wild nor'west. On winter nights I while can feel me cottage gan adrift, and once again I grip the wheel to the sea swell's easy lift. When loud swaps ghoster at the door, and the north wind tirls the snake, full canvas on we drive afore, as the whalebacks sweep the deck. Speer no for sick like Fairlie's proof, things chance when nights are lang. The very timbers of the roof creak as we daunt alang.
Bonny place that everybody likes to see. When you go there, your head will contain manfest. They call it the Happy Valley.
The Johns Must Foy is the brainchild of Marjorie Linklater. It's a collection of Orcadian poetry, literature and song. Howie Firth, senior producer at BBC Radio Orkney, has been selecting the pieces for this year's event.
The idea behind the name Johns Must Foy is that we're now at the midpoint of the summer, the old festival of St John, or Johnsmas, and a foy is actually a Shetland word meaning a festival or a celebration, so this is a bit of a midsummer celebration.
Away among the sailors' house, there's a bonny place that everybody likes to see. When you go there, your head will contain manfest. They call it the Happy Valley.
I often think that of all the parishes in Orkney, the most real one is actually a mythical parish. It's called Stenwick, and it's the creation of Bob Johnston, who worked on the newspaper, the Orkney Herald, here in the 60s. And although he came from Buckie, I think there's nobody who's got the ear for Orkney dialect, the Orkney humour and the Orkney way of life that Bob has. And this is an excerpt from one of his classic Stenwick stories.
Ladies and gentlemen, announced Barnabas, we now come to the high spot of the evening, a contest for the crowning championship of Stenwick. As you see, we have two competitors here, both of them well-kent, Nathaniel Swanee of Drycouth, and here Nathaniel skipped forward, swept off his cap, and bowed low with a wide and fatuous grin. And here's Boris Cossie o' Nitherdung. Boris looked sheepishly down at the platform and shuffled his feet. This contest will be judged by the audience. The competitor who gets the loudest applause to be the winner. The winner will receive a prize of a £5 note, and there'll be a consolation prize of 10 bob for the other competitor. And now I'll call on the first competitor, Boris Cossie, was going to crown the Rose o' Tralee. Boris stepped forward while Barnabas, who was accompanying, sat down at the piano. There was a light sweat on Boris's face, and the masked faces of the audience seemed to swim before his eyes. He took a deep breath, and as the piano tinkled, he burst into song.
Margaret Headley comes from Stronsay, and that's an island that's very rich in old stories and legends and tales of the creatures of the hill and the sea. And she's written new stories for young Orcadian children of today, such as one about a peaty green crab.
By this time, the peaty crab was feeling tired and weary, so he sat himself down on a rock and drailed his long green legs in the water and thought about the pearly comb. By and by, the sun began to sink away out over the sea, and the peaty green crab was just beginning to think about going home, when what should he hear but somebody weeping? Up got the peaty crab and looked this way and that, and there away and away along the shore sat a mermaid. Her long black hair hung down around her shoulders, all knotted and tangled, and she was weeping as if her heart would break. Then the peaty green crab went spundering over the rocks, shouting, "Have you lost a pearly comb?" And sure enough, The mermaid had lost her pearly comb, and she was weeping because she couldn't get the tangles combed out of her long black hair. So away they swam, the peaty green crab and the mermaid, away and away down through the green sea, down to the cranny in the rocks for the mermaid's pearly comb.
Well, obviously in a festival like this you get ensembles, even orchestras coming from outside and taking part in world premieres of new compositions and so on. But there's also a great scope for local people to take part, not only in the music making, but in other events. And what I like most of all, I think, about the Johnsmas Foy is that we get together this lovely mixture of people from all sections of the community, old and young, and also people who just enjoy a night out.
What the Arcadia Folk Art Studio is doing this year is street theatre. And what we're trying to do is create an atmosphere with the natural environment, the surroundings of the buildings. And we're recreating some old customs and festivals.
As I came o'er the hill, there I met a man o' leather, through a rock, through a reel, through an old spinning wheel, through a sheep shank's foot, sicker man was never known. As I came o'er the hill o' heather, there I met a man o' leather, through a rock, through a reel, through an old spinning wheel, through a sheep shank's foot, sicker man was never known. Failure, failure, big failure, boo! He ate more meat than 80 men.
While the Arcadia Folk Art Studio reenact the Lammas Festival in true 18th century style, clarinetist John Gray brings things up to date with a piece commissioned for the festival from Sven Weber, Stronze Remembered.
I think it's a piece that has its own depth. I mean, it's very different from anything that I concentrate on playing, mainly, this rip-roaring contemporary stuff. But it's been really nice to play this piece, which is it has a depth which I respect a lot, especially when the complexity of the clarinet and the piano part together. It has this resounding depth, which is quite moving, I think. A concert like this, I don't think many people would do it out of London, for instance. But we've got such a strong and creative community. I mean, it's not a question of we've been in the sort of provincial backwaters. We're here, and alive and kicking.
It's a mark of the diversity of this 10th St Magnus Festival that along with contemporary music like the clarinet pieces, you can also revel in the traditional sound of fiddler Peter Pratt with Banjo Breakdown.
I think the St Magnus Festival is important to all the music lovers in Orkney. It's an important festival, and it takes a lot of the like Andre Previn. I mean, he would never have been up here if it wasn't for the St Magnus Festival, so I think it is very important to get the bigger names up here and let the people hear them, which they otherwise wouldn't do.
Soon after the king's death, the Grand Vizier, a pompous minister with no hint of shyness, and dull with dullness and distinctly boring, went to the prince and said, Your Royal Highness, in the precincts of the palace there is, as you are aware, a lion's den. When the wind is wafted here, he vexes us with roaring. According to ancient custom, before you may ascend the throne of your heroic ancestors, you must prove to us, beyond mistake or error, you have a nerve of iron. Go forth and fight the lion.
The Pride Alliance is about, well, a prince, and he's a coward, and he's been offered, well, been allowed to have the throne after his father's died, but he must go and kill the lion. But he runs away because he's a coward, and he moves to Amir and the princess, and he falls in love with the princess. He realises that if he wants to marry the princess, he has to go and kill the lion, so he goes back, and, well, he doesn't kill him because they make friends, and then he marries the princess, Cara, and the coronation, and he becomes king.
And may I have a look, said the prince, all jubilation. One step he took and tried to pull the veil aside. Oh, steady, steady. The lady, as if by chance, with many an artful glance, had let it drop already. Behold, Yasmin's face, all loveliness and grace, and how she enjoyed his agitation. Now we'll step to the wedding and coronation.
The children of Pabdale Primary School in Kirkwall, this year making their first contribution to the St Magnus Festival. The distinctive quality of the Orcadian accent breathes life into performance of a different kind. Festival chorus conductor Richard Hughes.
People often compare, or Orcadians have often been mistook, or mistaken, or accused of being Welsh because of the similarity of nuance or whatever. The lilt seems to be common to both accents. I'm very happy here myself. I've always been at home in Orkney. I don't think there's any particular gain in having an Orcadian accent as far as singing is concerned. One little characteristic that the Orcadian has is to pronounce a J as CH. So joy comes out as choy, which is a jolly good way of actually singing the word because it makes it clearer.
One of the most ambitious productions at this year's festival is presented by Orkney County Drama.
Ah! It strikes! It strikes! Now body turn to air, or Lucifer will bear me quick to hell. Or soul be changed into little water drops and fall into the ocean, there be found. Oh! My God! Look not so fierce on me! And as it serpent, let me breathe a while! Ugly hell! Gain not! Come not, Lucifer! I'll burn my books! I'll never stumble it!
It is a group of people basically that are very interested in drama. And they come from all over the Orkney mainland, and they come to rehearse 2 or 3 times a week, as much as is required. It isn't a club as such, it's simply a group of people that come together at this time of year to work on a production for the festival.
The Orkney Youth Theatre, on the other hand, are a full-time touring theatre company.
The repertoire comes from like prejudice, things like that, so we take in plays about school, children being rejected at school because they're outsiders, or people being handicapped, having problems, so we build plays on that. And we've done quite a few street theatre bits like the non-smoking campaign, and just raising money for charities as well, stuff like that.
On the boat! We got cold on the boat.
And I nearly fell in.
And we laughed. It rained.
We got wet.
The sun dried us off.
Except for our foot.
Because the shoe had a leak.
And we laughed.
A skua attacked him.
Again and again. And I ducked and hit out with my bag.
And we saw lots of hares that stared and stared.
But always ran off.
Just in time.
And we laughed.
The walk wasn't easy.
We couldn't talk much, just pant.
And puff.
And laugh. We got there to Rackwick.
We paddled in the sea, through seaweed, and got very wet.
Stretched out in the grass.
Watched seagulls' reflections float past in the burn. And we talked, and we smiled.
And we laughed.
Found the milk churned to butter and the honey had run.
All over the polythene bag.
So we sipped at our tea.
Which was black.
Ate chocolate.
With crisps.
Shared the honey and the bread with the starlings and sparrows. And birds we couldn't find in my book.
And we laughed. Walked up a hill and looked down at the cliffs and laughed.
Rolled down across the heather and laughed.
Walked back feeling tired.
And only just made it.
Then froze on the boat going back.
And laughed.
As we came into Stromness, I saw Mum and Dad standing at the edge of the pier.
Waiting.
For us.
And we laughed.
And we laughed. And we laughed. The St Magnus Festival means quite a lot, I think, to us, because we have a chance to perform in as well as folk festivals or choirs or orchestras, as things like that. So it gives us a chance to put in a play that we've been touring around Isles. So it's not only the children that get a chance to see it, it's also adults at the piece where we perform it. So it gives them a fair chance to see what we're doing as well.
It's also something it's like part of your life, because every year there's the St Magnus Festival when you're living in Orkney, and it's such a close community. You know a lot of people that are involved with it, and it's just like something that happens every year, and it's people getting up and doing things. It's a good thing to have. It brings the community closer together.
Seemingly rare breed, a Viking with pacifist tendencies. He greatly annoyed the King of Norway by refusing to fight for him in a sea battle in the Menai Straits, on the grounds that he had no quarrel with anyone there. Instead of fighting, he took out his psalter and chanted psalms throughout the battle. Magnus was promptly exiled. Sometime after the death of that king, though, the earldom of Orkney passed jointly to Magnus and his cousin Hakon. The saga records that Magnus, Earl of Orkney, was a wise and saintly man, eloquent, generous, gentle and popular. Unfortunately, Earl Hakon was rather less saintly, and in due course fell out with Magnus. When their quarrel came to a head, he wanted to imprison Magnus, but his supporters insisted that one of the earls must die. "We're having no more joint rule," they said. "Okay," said Hakon, "better kill him then." But Hakon could find no one who was willing to do the deed, and when he ordered his cook to kill Magnus, the man burst into tears. Magnus comforted the cook with an assurance that he had prayed for God to grant him mercy. "Stand in front of me and strike me hard on the head," said Magnus. "It's not fitting for a chieftain to be beheaded like a thief." And with that, says the saga, he crossed himself and stooped to receive the blow. So his soul passed away to heaven. When this cathedral was undergoing restoration in 1919, a workman poked his ruler into a gap in the stonework of one of the pillars in the choir and discovered a small box containing the bones of St Magnus, with the skull split in half, just as the saga had said, and the left shoulder blade missing. This shoulder blade is in St Vitus Cathedral in Prague, where it's long been claimed as a holy relic. While the orchestra are back in their seats now and almost ready for the final work, Mendelssohn's incidental music for A Midsummer Night's Dream. Tonight we hear 3 extracts from the music he wrote to accompany Shakespeare's play. The Fleet Scherzo evokes the magical world of the fairies. That's followed by the Nocturne with its famous horn solo played at the end of Act 3 as the lovers fall asleep in the wood. And our programme tonight ends with Mendelssohn's triumphant wedding march. And now here's the conductor, André Previn. enthusiastic applause for that performance of the Wedding March, concluding the programme of incidental music for A Midsummer Night's Dream by Mendelssohn. And as the applause continues to echo round this ancient Viking church, we'll take our leave of St Magnus Cathedral and of the islands where the sun will scarcely set at all this midsummer's night, Orkney. It's been a historic concert, this, by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, given with the support of the Scottish Post Office Board. And for all of us in the cathedral here, it's been a marvellous occasion. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Thank you for joining us. From St Magnus Cathedral in Orkney, a very good night to you.